Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. Today I want to talk to you about price ceiling. What is your maximum you would spend on a particular figure? I think, of course, it varies depending on whether it's a mini-bot, car-bot, big figure, or a specific figure. Price ceiling doesn't always have to do with your budget or can you afford it. A lot of the time it's perceived value. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to discuss many different aspects of a collector's price ceiling. Why it's there, how it affects collectors, how it affects community, and how it affects the companies. And I'm going to tell you how I feel and how my ceiling has changed over the years. Of course, I want to know what you think. Coming up! For me, in the early days of collecting Masterpiece Transformers, I never even conceived spending something like $100. The ceiling for me was far below $100 in the early days of Masterpiece, when I was $63 for the Walmart version of the MP01. This was actually not the Walmart version, but the Walmart version was a lot cheaper. With the Optimus Prime costing $63 or so, and then getting clearance down to $25. Never saw it cheaper than $25. And then Starscream was $55, and then some of the other Seekers were in that price range, but then I don't know if Starscream ever got clearanced out, but the other ones got clearanced down to as cheap as, I think, $15 for a Skywarp. So with that at the time was sort of helping me set a price ceiling, an expectation, thought a really good value for $55 back in the day. Then Carbots started showing up for $60, and I really had a hard time with that because in my mind, I didn't see the perceived value in $60 in the Carbots back 10 years ago. In 2012, I was not seeing the value in that, so I went a different route to get the Carbots. To me, I couldn't conceive spending $100 on a big Optimus Prime, let alone $60 on a 6-inch Carbot. Sort of around that time frame, I had friends getting the Quake Wave, saying it was awesome. I did not like the aesthetic, and I really did not like the price. Now, I think some people got them for $160, but I always saw them for around $200. So when he sold out, of course, he went for even crazy, stupid prices. But I just did not see this being worth more than $100 in my mind. And I stayed away from third party for a while because my price ceiling was far below the asking price of around the $200 price point for these types of figures. Now, I did struggle a little bit going to $150 on this Megatron, but I understood with Megatron because we're never going to see a gun that turns into a Megatron or a Megatron that turns into a gun. That's just not going to happen in modern day. Well, modern day 2014, it wasn't going to happen. So with that, I accepted the $150, paid a premium because of the character, because of the figure, and now you can find this guy a lot cheaper, and there's even better options out there. Also, Swoop is one of my favorite characters, and it was my introduction to Fans Toys. The Fans Toys Swoop, $184 is what I paid for mine, and good figure, it was great. It was really hard to stomach, though, the price on this. This was uncomfortable for me financially at the time, because of the fact that it was far above my price ceiling. And in my mind, there was no way I would fill out all the Dinobots at this price point. Just my favorite one, Swoop. What really got me to adjust my own personal price ceiling, and adjust it up, of course, was this one here, the Arcos. The X-Transbots version, Beachcomber. Now, this one here was, at the time, the best Beachcomber you can find. There were other options for semi-Masterpiece with iGear and such back in the day, but this one was the one, and they wanted $70 for it. I think every place was charging $70 for this one here, and that was before I even knew of Shozi. I don't think Shozi was around back then, but when this one came out, this got me, and I started looking for it on the secondary market after it sold out, and I was like, man, I wish I would have got it for $70 now, and everyone's selling for $150 for about a year and a half until it got reissued. And that's when I realized, though, that something like this, it's definitely worth $70. There's demand there for it, and if I passed on it, if I kept my low price ceiling, I would just do without forever. Because even the reissue was still around $70. I think there was a sell for like $60, somewhere around there. So Fans Toys was putting out a lot of great figures, and a lot of those figures really felt like they were worth the 130, 135. I think some places were charging 160, but I was getting them for 130 from Shozi. So getting into that whole process there, I was feeling like I got my value for 130. I felt like Quietus was definitely worth 130, and I think I had to pay 160 for the Quietus T, and I was even okay with that. So a lot of these really high quality figures coming out in the above $100 price point. My price ceiling was higher, but I really felt satisfied with the figures that were coming out at that price point. And then there were even more good figures coming out at that price point. And so with that 6-shot of theirs that they put out, that was definitely a Hydra. It was a solid figure. People even complained about it, but I thought that was definitely a good value. I did sort of pass on their Galvatron for a while. I was in denial, but I have to say, it felt really good for a while getting all of these figures for a good price. Then we started getting price gouged by Fans Toys, and the Fans Toys price gouging during, of course, the 2020 and 2021 time frame, that has corrected since then. But with that, we weren't really seeing as much of the value. Nowadays, the prices are coming back in line with what they should be. 2019 was more or less my first real big test of my price ceiling. I was in there in the 130, 150, 160 range, but then this comes out at 450. I got creative and found it on Amazon Japan for 328, and that was a fun experience. I don't really mess with Amazon Japan anymore so much, and I don't know if you can still get the deals on there anymore. I know AliExpress, there's a lot of deals there, but I've never messed with that either. So some people get the deals, some people don't. I hear there's a bit of risk to some of those other options. But anyhow, this was a big problem for people. It was above their price ceiling. Not that people couldn't afford it. It's that they just didn't feel like it was worth $450. And then in some cases, plus tax. And then some cases, plus tax and shipping. So with that, I mean, that was a big debate. And it was a big problem. But it wasn't lack of affordability, it was lack of perceived value. Now enter into the HasLab Unicron. HasLab Unicron was $600 and something dollars. It was $600 plus tax, and they did eat the shipping on that one. It's not a masterpiece figure, but it's the biggest version of Unicron. There was a lot of issues with this, but this goes back to a perceived value also. I know it's not a masterpiece, but so many people felt like it wasn't worth the $600. And so once you start looking at your price ceiling, you start to see something really strange. You see people that have a price ceiling at the time, whether it is their budget or perceived value, and they pass on it, and they're very vocal about it. But then once it's been out for a few years and you realize your only options are secondary market, people pay $2,000 for this now, right? The cheapest one on eBay right now is $1,700. I also think it wasn't very helpful that there was a rumor of this supposed to be KO oversized version of the Armada to be about the same height. Actually, this thing was supposed to be, I think, 36 inches tall or something like that. What's 72 centimeters? Well, that's 28.35 inches tall. So still, that was supposed to be a pretty big option that never got released. It never was put out. And if it did, I missed that. I would love to see it, but that's another problem there, because this would have probably come out in like the $130 price range, which is sort of where these third-party, KO companies are living when it comes to something like this. So then we get into the Masterpiece City Bots. The Light Toys making their Metroplex. I think it's going to be pretty awesome when it comes out. And then you got Fans Toys and allegedly doing their Fort Max and all of that kind of stuff. So what is the price ceiling on these? I think the price ceiling for a lot of collectors when it comes to these City Bots is going to be the price. Will it be $1,000? Will it be $1,250? Will it come in multiple? It'll be an A, B, and a C, and each one of them are $700, and you're looking at $2,000 or something along those lines. So we don't really know about the Fans Toys one. Light Toys says about $1,000, and so I pretty much take their word on that one. They said it's not going to be crazy over $1,000 is what they're saying, but anyway. With all of this, I think the price ceiling is less of a perceived value and more of I'm not dropping $1,000 on that. Sorry. I mean, I just don't want to spend $1,000 on one figure, and I'm not going to have very many other figures that I could drop $1,000 on to go up against it. So I would view these more as another display stand. In my opinion, you'd be displaying it either in base mode or buy mode, and you'd have incorporating a handful of other figures with it. But when you look at perceived value and you look at price ceiling, a lot of people pass on official Takara because they know that there's going to be a KO down the road. And then right now there's information / rumor, but the rumor information actually makes a lot of sense. I'm classifying this as rumor, but it does make a lot of sense, and it hits the timeline just right. They are saying that we're going to have the MP-57, we're going to have this Skyfire getting a KO in October. Now, from all of my analysis in the past years, that we generally get a true KO of a product that's not Takara dumping excess stock or something that they find that there's a small fault with it or something like that. When it's truly a KO, it usually takes about 10 months. Well, people started getting their Skyfires in January. 10 months later, it's October. This is supposed to be out in October. All of this makes sense. So, don't really know price so much just yet, and availability and all that kind of stuff. But as soon as I know more information about this, I will definitely be passing this along. Now, I do want to talk about the KOs of fans' toys and how that sort of affects them in a way. But they're not really KOs in my understanding of all this whole situation. I would love to have more actual facts about the situation. My understanding is the designers, they have a claim to this design, and they're literally just putting their own design out. Now, they're not quite as good as Fans Toys. Fans Toys has the manufacturing side down. They've worked that out really well. So, some of these just aren't as good. They're not horrible. They're not bad. And I would definitely not say that if you want to get a half-price version, definitely go for it. But brings another question. Like, why is it that these quote-unquote KOs of Fans Toys come out, and I thought the Fans Toys reissues would hit the same time, but they're still not out yet. Somebody was asking me, where is Acoustic Wave, the reissue of Acoustic Wave, that they would have never done if it wasn't for these quote-unquote KOs. Then it's still not out yet. And a lot of people were asking about it. It says it's supposed to be out in the next couple of months or something, but we expected it last year. So still a lot of questions to that. But when it comes to the KO, your perceived value getting pretty much this figure for $140 instead of 200 and whatever, 220 or 240 or whatever it was, depending on where you got it, definitely is a better value. I think there's definitely more meat on that KO Fans Toys bone, and it really needs to be explored a little bit further, a lot deeper, because there's a lot more going on there. There's a lot more going on there than anybody even really discusses. But with this, the next point I really want to get into, it's real easy to talk about price ceilings when you're talking about big, expensive items, and when you're talking about small items that cost too much. But looking at the middle of the road, and X-Transbots is living there. X-Transbots is living there. $100 for something like this, which is the Punch Counterpunch, which is going to be basically a carbot, gonna have some die cast. It's gonna have quite a bit of engineering involved because it's gonna turn into two different things. Well, three. It's two different versions of a bot, and it's gonna turn into a car. So with all of that, $100 is, to me, that's a good value for this figure. Plus, it's an obscure character that they're not going to make. It's not like there's going to be 4 options out there that you can pick from that we can line up in a review and say, I think I like the MMC better. Well, no, MMC's not making it. So it's the only option in town, and they're not trying to overcharge you, in my opinion. $100 is a good price. Okay, so when it comes to X-Transbots doing a Devastator, they're going to be charging $150 a figure. Now, I didn't really catch this the first go around, but they're about 8 inches tall. So this first one here is going to be about 8 inches tall. So that puts it close to like a Megatron and Optimus Prime height. They're 9 inches tall, so it's like an inch shy of Megatron of MP36. So $150 price point. I still think it's too expensive because when you're looking at that, you're going to have to buy 6 of them. They're probably all going to cost $150, and then $150 times 6 would be $900. Now, depending on where you get it, you might have to pay tax on that. You might have to pay shipping on that. And who knows, by the time the 6th one comes out, they might be $170. We've seen that before with their Minosaur. So, with all of this going on, I don't know if I'm in on the set. I was in on the set when I thought they were 100, but now at 150, I don't know if I'm in on the set. And with that, there's a price ceiling that I just hit because it's not a perceived value. $900 on a combiner that I already have, although this one will probably look a lot better, just doesn't sit right for me. Then there's, of course, the question of the Fans Toys ones. Now, the Fans Toys ones are costing quite a bit themselves. I think I did the math on them, cost about $750 for each of the Fans Toys ones, but then again, I don't know the combiner parts or how much is the last figure going to cost and all that kind of stuff. So with that, there's some question, and I really want to dig a little deeper. Is the reason they can't get these to combine because the designer who designed them is no longer with them and they're off making KO sound waves? I mean, is that what's going on right now? Is that why they can't get the combiner out? I mean, who knows? But with that, are they going to have to construct a steel frame to hold up all the diecast? I mean, who knows? Who really knows what's going on with all of it? And they say they figured it all out and it's coming. It's still coming, but we still don't know. Anyhow, the price of this, I was gonna be out on it, but I decided I was gonna keep these as an individual set, and I looked at them all as individual pieces, not one combiner. Because if I was thinking buying one combiner for this price, that was $750, I would have been out. I never would have started it. But when I just like Superion, so there it is. And Takara was outrageous with their MP44. Now you're getting a much bigger figure than MP44 for a much lower price, almost like $180 less, something like that, which still $270 is above a lot of people's price point or their price ceiling, so they're going to hold off, maybe get the KO, maybe just sit with a Fans Toys if they have it for what they're going to do, or go with the KO oversize of the Siege, because that's something coming out also. Anyhow, where are you with your price ceiling? Have you seen your price ceiling adjust up like mine has? And has your price ceiling also come back down a bit? Because of what's going on right now in the world. But let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Teddy Hanger out.